It is a beautiful night. The moon is full and the ocean is calm. But then, the calm waters are being plowed through by a ship, a passenger ship. On the starboard bow, its name is placed in both Hindi and English in white. The Bodhi, 230 meters in length and 60 meters in height. On board, the passengers are in the highest of spirits, especially when it's nearing the new year. Most of them are mainly couples and families who decided to come on board the ship to spend the holiday together away from home. The others are mainly single, but they too wanted to change the pace for the holiday. As for the crew, they do not get to enjoy the luxuries of being on a fancy cruise ship. They are still busy maintaining the ship to make sure that everything is in tip-top shape. Regular maintenance, engine checking, deck cleaning, and many other duties that a crewmate or sailor has to do. On the main deck on the port amidships, an old man walks out of one of the doors. He wears the captain's uniform and he holds a mug of coffee in his left hand. The captain, Mahit Pai, looks out into the open ocean. He lets out a big yawn. Then he looks up into the clear night sky filled with a few stars beyond the horizon. The water reflects the moon's light as it shines on the side of the ship. I'll never get tired of this smell. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a pocket watch. It's approximately 8:27 p.m., 3 hours and 33 minutes until the new year. I guess I can get a few hours of sleep. He looks back at the pocket watch. A photo of himself, his wife, and child makes him smile. He puts his pocket watch back into his pocket and turns around. In the process, he looks over to the side. He spots an old couple standing against the railing, staring out into the Indian Ocean. The old couple, Akira and Chidori, looks over at the captain and waves at him. The captain waves back and heads towards the door he came out of. But then, he stops. He hears a pair of feet running, and it's getting louder, and it's coming from his right side. He looks and sees one of his crews running. The officer stops and salutes the captain. "Senior Officer Raj? Why were you running? Shouldn't you be in the bridge?" "I was, sir, but I was sent here from the bridge." "Well, what is it?" "We've detected an unidentified object approaching the starboard stern." "Ah, it's probably a massive whale. Leave it be." "Sir, whales aren't usually detected on radar. It's much bigger." "Bigger?" There goes my good night's sleep. All right, let's go. The captain and his senior officer begins to walk together on the deck. "So, Raj, how has your day been so far?" "Ugh, the usual as ever. Earlier today in the dining room, a woman was giving one of our waiters a lot of shit for the steak being medium rare instead of medium well and blah 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 blah." "Right." "Then, the chef storms out of the kitchen, furious, and screams at her at the top of his lungs, 'Your steak was cooked to perfection! You know nothing of good food!' It was ugly." "Uh-huh. And where were you when all of this happened?" "Oh, I was there, eating a good Indian curry." "And my other senior officers?" "They weren't there. I was all alone. But I handled the situation. Granted, the chef almost spilled my curry and stabbed me, but still." "I see. Yeah, I never want to go through anything like that ever again." "At least you handled it quite well. Now, if it was any worse, I'd have to throw you overboard." "Wait, what?" "I'm kidding. But in all seriousness, you need to be more careful and more prepared next time. I can't have one of my best officers slacking off or dying on the job." You're right, sir. My apologies." It's fine. It's fine. "Oh, that reminds me. Are you retiring, sir?" "Why, yes, I am. It's my last year as the captain of the ship." "Wow. Hard to believe you've been captain for so many years." "The Indo-Pakistani War had everything to do with that." "Oh, I forgot you were a veteran of that conflict." "And I have a chance to get back with my family. We're going to be moving to Academy City." "Really?" "Yep. I got accepted to become a scientist representing India." "I didn't know they allow foreigners to become scientists." "The chairman signed a document, and it became law just 2 days ago." "So from now on, my wife is going to see me with a lab coat on every time I come home." "Okay, mad scientist." "Oh, actually, I'm supposed to meet an old friend in Ireland. He's a priest." Raj looks at the captain with the most dumbfounded look on his face. "An Irish priest? Sir, haven't you realized what's going on in Celtic Ireland?" "The Civil War?" "Yeah, I'm aware. Part of the reason is that the manpower in Northern Ireland has depleted so fast the situation has gotten worse. I may hate the British, but I can't imagine what the civilians are going through." Although, I don't trust those priests. Some say that the Catholic priests are responsible for it. Well, he isn't one of those priests. However, I guess I can postpone my visit. I hope Francis doesn't mind. I'm sure he won't. Wait, what if the unknown object is an Irish submarine? Well, let's find out if it is. The two officers rush ahead. They climb a few steps to the second deck above. The captain approaches a door. He reaches out and grabs the handle. He opens the door and the two walk into the ship's bridge. The 8 crewmates stands up to their feet and salutes the captain and senior officer before sitting back down at their stations. Second senior officer Mahal walks up to the captain and salutes him. Captain, what's this I hear about a large unknown object? Well, about 2 minutes ago, we've encountered something on our sonar approaching our port stern. At first, we thought it was a huge whale. When has a whale ever been picked up on sonar? Exactly. But then, we discovered radiation coming from it. Pai looks at Raj. Looks like that submarine theory is turning out to be real after all. A nuclear submarine? Maybe it's one of China's. Impossible. The Chinese only operate in their waters. Wait, you don't think it could be a Celtic sub? All the way out here? I thought they only sail in the Atlantic. Maybe one of them veered off course. What do we do? Captain Pai looks down from Raj, unknowing how to answer his question. Then, he looks at Mahal. Have you contacted the crew of the submarine? Not yet. Contact them immediately. The captain walks over to the ship's wheel and grabs it. Set the ship to full speed, and I'll steer it to starboard. He turns the ship's wheel to the right. Raj, you're on sonar duty. Monitor the vessel's movement. Aye, Captain. Raj rushes over to the sonar and looks down at it. The beeping indicates where something is on either side of the ship, usual for detecting incoming submarines and/or ships. He looks closely at the sonar to tell what the unknown vessel is doing. The green line circling around the sonar picks up the unknown vessel. It appears to be moving alongside the body at the same speed as the ship, 22 knots, even as the ship itself is turning to starboard. Captain, the vessel is moving alongside our port side. Mahal, send a message to the crew of the sub and tell them they are too close and should steer away from our port side. Mahal rushes over to the communications radio. He sits down in a chair and picks up a pair of headphones with a microphone. He turns it on and tunes it to the right frequency and channel. Celtic submarine, this is Senior Officer Mahal of the Body. You are too close to our port side. Please divert immediately. Over. Mahal now waits for the response from the vessel. A few seconds goes by, and all that he can hear on the other side is static. Celtic vessel, this is Senior Officer Mahal. You are dangerously close to our port side. Please divert course immediately. Once again, no response. Only more static. What the hell? Mahal? Anything? No, sir. All I'm getting is static. Maybe some sort of jamming device? The captain looks ahead from Mahal. This is a situation that he thought he would never be involved in. He thinks to himself of possible ideas. Each one he thinks of, however, does not end well. But there is one other option. Tell the crew in the 4th deck below to drop practice charges. The entire bridge goes silent. Captain, that is a horrible idea. I get that we are operating a merchant cruise ship acting as a passenger cruise ship, but dropping depth charges? That will terrify the passengers. Plus, those depth charges are meant for Academy City and its defense force. We're not allowed to use them. Did you ever consider that it could be a Celtic attack submarine? Well, yeah, but even if it is, the Black Death will know about it, and who knows what he'll do to Sri Lanka. Or India. Hell, all of Southeast Asia. Officer, this is a demand. Send it. The senior officer goes silent after a very cold response by the captain. Raj approaches the radio and pushes the button. Storage room, this is Senior Officer Raj. We are encountering an unknown vessel underneath our ship. Launch 1 practice depth charge delivered away. But, sir, we're not supposed to use the... Colonel, it's a direct order from the captain. Yes, sir. The captain grabs the PA radio to make an announcement.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Pai. I apologize for waking you up at this time, but we are about to experience some rocky sand barges, so please do not be alarmed when the ship hits them. Thank you.
2 of his colleagues rushes over to help him. While they push the practice depth charge towards a large pool that leads into the open ocean, he arms the explosive to a set timer. They count to 3, then they toss the charge into the pool. Meanwhile, the message from the captain did indeed woke up some passengers. But for those who are still awake, they are very confused on his words. Akira specifically does not know what he means. He looks ahead of the starboard bow. Looking closely, he finds that there are no sand barges ahead, or anywhere. That's a bit odd. There's no sand barges at all. An explosion erupts from underneath the ship and sends an immediate shockwave throughout. Plumes of water shoots upwards, reaching half of the ship's height. As expected, the passengers who are asleep suddenly wakes up. Those who aren't don't know what happened.
Once again, there was a sand barge, ladies and gentlemen. There could be more out there. I'll try to evade them as best I can.
Like hell, that was a sand barge. That was a depth charge. His wife Chidori looks at him confused yet concerned. How do you know it was a depth charge? A second explosion, rocking the ship slightly and sending water upwards, partially answers her question. Experience. And have you forgotten what explosions felt like? We need to get off the ship. Wait, what? How? Her sentence stops when her husband leans against the railing looking down towards the water. He spots the area of plume where the explosion occurred disappearing. He catches on to an empty lifeboat hanging on the side of the ship's starboard amidships. He releases his grip from the railing and rushes over to it, with Chidori following him. As the old man approaches the lifeboat, Chidori grabs his arm before he could climb into it. What about our belongings? They're going to be lost at sea anyway. We don't have time to get what we need. Not when something is still underneath this ship. He rests his hands on the edge of the boat, lifts his right leg, and places it on the railing. He pulls himself up. Chidori looks over the railing down into the water. Even at this height, she is hesitant to get in the lifeboat. Akira turns his head and sees that his wife is not climbing with him. He lets go of the boat's edge and removes his foot from the railing. He walks up to her and grabs onto her shoulders. When I was in the war, the moment an American dive bombers attacked the Yamato, the first thing I did was getting the hell off of that thing. I had no choice but to jump. I know that part. But the Americans captured you when you made it back to Okinawa. Yes, but they understood that I didn't want to be part of the war. And I was allowed to return home. Return to you. Do you remember the promise I made to you when the war was over? Hearing his words, Chidori thinks back to her husband making a specific promise. Meanwhile, back in the ship's bridge, give me a status report! The object is still underneath the ship, and it looks like it's getting closer. Tell the storage room to send on a live depth charge. But Captain, this ship will be destroyed unless we destroy it first! I'll risk our country going to war against Celtic Ireland. Moments later, the order comes in. The crew are stunned beyond belief. But orders are orders. A live depth charge, different in shape and size, is rolled along the steel floor towards the open pool. As they drop the live underwater explosive within the ship, the passengers on the upper decks are up and about. The adults are looking around, asking others what is going on. Some of their children are starting to worry. A few cabin crews are trying their best to control the confused passengers on each deck. A third explosion rocks the ship from bottom to top. The massive vessel sways to one side, then the other. Water explodes upwards on the port and starboard amidships. The rising water hits the lifeboats, as well as Akira and Chidori, who are knocked onto the deck. They stumble to their feet, holding onto the railing. The promise that I made to you was when I returned from the war, I was gonna stay by your side, no matter what happens. And I'm standing by that promise. I wouldn't know what to do if I lost you on the ship. As he gets to his feet, he claps his hands together and bows his head. Please, we have to live. For our son-in-law. For our daughter. For our granddaughter. Memories of the Battle of Okinawa floods into her mind. Even though it has been less than 60 years, to her, it is very fresh. The days where she has to be confined inside of a cave far from her home in Naha. But she does remember when the Americans are escorting her and a group of Okinawan civilians, and she was able to see him once again. From that moment on, a family has started, with their granddaughter carrying on their last names. Akira lifts his head up, but he doesn't see his wife. He looks to the lifeboat only to find her climbing aboard. She looks at him. You're coming, or what? Akira smiles. He reaches to the side and climbs aboard. Once he sits down, he helps his wife climb up. The two are situated on the lifeboat, but there is one problem. Wait, how do we get down on the water? Leave it to me. She raises her left arm to the side and sticks her fingers out. Electric bolt shoots from her fingers. They attach to the lever and pulls it down. The crane lowers the lifeboat as the bolts disappears. So you still got it, huh? Now, grab a paddle. We're getting the hell out of here. Back in the bridge, the crew within, including the captain, gets back to their feet after they were forced to the floor by the explosions. Status! One moment, sir. Raj climbs back into his chair and looks at the sonar. His face starts to break into sweat. Captain? The object is still on the move. And it hasn't changed course. The captain looks at him shocked and starts pouring sweat. What? In fact, it looks like it's getting closer. A realization comes to his mind.
Captain, we're about to collide. Mahal, send a distress call to India and Sri Lanka. Aye, Captain. I'll try to steer the ship hard to starboard.
A third senior officer, Batia, walks upon the second deck down. His job is to look for anyone who might be roaming around the decks. Him and his colleagues are doing the job assigned to them. He looks off to the side. He spots a pair of wires hanging on the side. He looks up and sees the crane with no lifeboat. He follows the wires to the water, then up. He spots the single lifeboat with Akira and Chidori rowing away from the body.
What the hell?
On the boat, Akira looks past his wife and sees the officer waving his hands, getting their attention. They can also hear him faintly.
Come back! It's not safe!
They ignore his warning and continue rowing the boat.
God damn it!
Suddenly, Batia hears commotion behind him. He turns around and immediately spots 10 passengers coming towards him.
Hey, what is going on? What were those explosions? Yeah, I can't control my children because of them.
More and more complaints rains down on the senior officer.
People, please! I assure you that everything is under control.
Back within the bridge, Mahal is busy making a distress call to the mainland in Sri Lanka.
Mayday, that's a senior officer Poon Mahal of the Body. We are under attack by an unknown enemy, possibly a Celtic attack submarine. Please send search and rescue to these coordinates. 5 degrees, 3747 north, 79 degrees, 3746 east. Repeat, this is senior officer...
Mahal pulls out the headphones from his head. He covers his ears.
Mahal? What happened? The static. Why the fuck is there static?
His sentence is interrupted by the lights dulling and brightening. All of the electronics goes haywire. On multiple decks, the people is starting to get a little more worried. All of the sailors tries to calm down everyone, but it is becoming no use. And then, the power goes out. Screams are heard throughout the ship.
Turn on the emergency power. The emergency power is also out, Captain. And so are our engines. We're sending ducks!
Must be an EMP. An unearthly, low rumbling sound travels through the water and throughout the ship. Suddenly, the noises coming from every deck go silent. Akira and Chidori even stopped in their tracks. What the hell? A calm spreads throughout the ship. However, not in the way that anyone would expect. Within and out on the decks of the ship, crewmen, sailors, and passengers look around in concern. The atmosphere has become ominous, even unnerving. The engines are out, and the ship is without power. The only source of light is the full moon. Out on the decks, the people can see. But within, while most have windows where the light can shine through, no one can see anything throughout the hallways. Nobody dared to speak. Even the children are left speechless. Every second that passes feels like an eternity. The ship suddenly rocks to starboard, then to port. The people on every deck sways back and forth. Some topples to the floor. On the outside, some nearly falls overboard. The little panic that there was has now increased dramatically. In the bridge, Captain Pai and his crew holds onto anything that will help them keep their balance. A crewman, Colonel Majid, looks at the ship's interior on the monitor.
Sir, the storage room has been hit!
Mahal changes frequencies to the storage room. He tries to speak into it, however there is still static, if not more than before. Agarwal reaches a phone and tries to communicate with the bridge, only to hear static that almost deafened him in his right ear. A loud clang stops everyone in their tracks. Metallic creaks, echoes, and bounces off the walls. All of the crewmen looks at them. A few spots a bulge getting bigger and bigger. It breaks, revealing a large, sharp object that punctured through. The men terrifyingly backs away from the object. More metallic creaking echoes in the storage room. A second bulge grows next to the first. Then, another sharp object penetrates through the walls, letting in more water than ever. Rightfully so, the crew are worrying for their lives. And then, a third penetrates through. On the other side, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth.
Move! Everybody out!
The crew hears the man, and they do as ordered. The seawater causes some to trip on the stomach, but they get back up and run towards the exits. The sharp objects begins to move downwards, ripping through the metal, creating an unnerving sound hurting the men's ears and causing more water to rush in. The rushing water pushes the men off of their feet, swallowing them into it. One crewman, Bakshi, looks towards the moving objects. Then he spots one of them getting closer to one of the storage containers.
Oh, good God!
Inside of the container, 500-pound bombs are attached to wires. The object presses down on the bomb-filled container. The pressure by the object is quick. Within the container, one of the bomb's fuses goes off. Then, it explodes. In a fraction of a second, it sets off the rest of the explosives within the container. The explosion knocks away other containers filled with weapons and explosives. Some of the charges and bombs goes off in a chain reaction, swallowing half of the crew and killing them instantly. Half of the containers within the storage room explodes within the chain reaction, causing the objects to pull out. A massive explosion spreads throughout the storage room, killing more crewmen into the outside. Everyone above decks rocks off of their feet by the explosion. Akira and Chidori hears the boom. They look back at the ship, only to see a rising black smoke. As the smoke clears, they notice that the ship's stern is taking on water at a rapid rate. On the decks, the terrified passengers are pushing themselves forward past sailors and jumping overboard into the ocean. Yet, the ones that do struggle because they do not know how to swim.
Akira, we should help one of them.
I was gonna say the same thing. Akira turns the boat with his paddle, then the two rows back towards the ship. Back in the bridge, Captain Pai and his crew stands back to their feet since they were knocked off by the sheer force of the explosion. Pai feels something pouring down his head. He places his hand on it, then looks at it. Blood is covering his fingers and palm. He puts his hand back on the open wound, then looks at his crew.
Spread the word. All hands, abandon ship! All hands, abandon ship!
The captain, along with his crew, exits the bridge in a hurry. Pai looks out into the ocean and immediately spots the one lifeboat rowing back to the ship. Lucky them. Pai makes his way down the steps, runs down the corridor, and makes it back outside onto the ship's port aft. The captain runs to the railing and looks down into the water. He can see the passengers not listening to his sailors and crew and jumping into the water. A tiny blue light glows under the ship. Pai squints his eyes. What the hell? The light grows rapidly and grows brighter and brighter to the point where everyone stops what they are doing and gaze upon it. Akira and Chidori stops rowing the boat and stares at the bright light. The light covers over 50 meters across the ship. The people in the water can feel it getting a little warmer than usual. The heat increases rapidly. What is going on? The blue light intensively flashes, blinding everyone who stared at it. The heat in the water around the ship reaches up to 392 degrees Fahrenheit. The water boils at such a rapid rate. Akira shields his eyes with his hand and catches a glimpse at the ship. A stream of blue fire shoots from under the ship into the air, shocking and stunning the old man. In the water, the people scream at the top of their lungs. Their skin, clothing, and hair becomes ablaze in a great inferno. Inside, the passengers try to run out, but they collapse because of the growing temperature. On the deck, everyone collapses to the floor, screaming at the top of their lungs and rolling to put out their flaming clothes. As the light dims away a little, Akira and Chidori looks on from a safe distance. The memory of flamethrower troops setting caves full of Imperial Japanese soldiers on fire enters their minds. Hearing the people's screams reminds them of the screams of soldiers and civilians alike. In this instance, there is nothing that they can do. They cuddle each other for comfort. The stream of blue flame stops and disappears. 2 seconds passes. Tiny explosions goes off in and outside of the ship. It spreads to the aft and stern simultaneously. The storage room of weapons and equipment goes off. And then, the entire vessel erupts in a gargantuan explosion on the level of the Halifax explosion in late 1917. The great explosion rips the ship in half. A shockwave blasts through the air, hitting the boat and the old couple at once, hurting their ears. The two huddle even tighter. Both are extremely horrified. Chidori prays while her husband holds her tightly. Their hearing starts to return. They open their eyes and looks back at the burning ship. Upon doing so, however, there is nothing to see but a massive pool engulfed in a smoldering inferno. There is no sound but the calm waters of the Indian Ocean and raging flames. No one is alive or left alive. The ship is gone. Akira and Chidori are the only survivors. The lifeboat carelessly floats in the calm waters in the Indian Ocean. Chidori rests on Akira's lap while the old war veteran thinks on the events that just happened. The unearthly sound, the flashing blue light, and the stream of blue fire shooting up into the sky. All of this doesn't make any sense. How in the world did all of this... He stops mid-sentence as a thought enters his mind. Wait. A flash of light? Strange noises? A boat being attacked? No, it can't be. His train of thought is interrupted. Something in the distance is getting closer to them. He listens to it closely. As it gets closer, he recognizes the sound. That's a helicopter! Jittery, wake up! What? The rescue is here! The rescue is here! The sound of the rotors getting closer becomes more louder than before. The old couple looks around to see where it is coming from. Upon looking to the left, they see a few blinking lights. A spotlight shines onto the ocean surface. It gets closer and closer to the two. Then, it comes to a stop over them. The Indian Westland Sea King rescue helicopter hovers over the boat. The two wave their arms, telling the pilots that they are there. A rescue pilot opens the side of the heli door and wraps the life preserver around him. Private Kumar jumps out of the helicopter and his colleague, Anand, lowers him to the lifeboat. For 2 minutes, the old couple are being lifted up into the rescue helicopter one at a time. Finally, when both are inside of the aircraft, the door closes and the helicopter turns 180 degrees and flies away from the lifeboat, left to drift in the ocean alone. Command, this is Heli 480. We have found only 2 survivors. We are heading back to the mainland, over.
Roger that, 480.
And then turns his attention to the tired and soaked Japanese couple. He crawls and sits in the seat in front of them. Excuse me, can you tell us what happened? Jittery cannot understand what the man is saying due to the language barrier. Why, yes, I'll try to explain. Thankfully, Akira's fluent Indian is helping matters. The old veteran tells the pilots everything that happened to the body. When he finishes, they are left speechless. My God. I'll make sure that your family is safe. Rest easy, brother. I am very sorry for your loss. Akira! He looks at his wife. Are we able to go back home? Oh, right. He looks back at Anand. Listen, sir. I thank you for saving us, but we need to head back to Okinawa. Is it possible to take us back there? Oh, of course. I can arrange a travel plan for you two, in exchange of giving us the names of the only 2 survivors of the body. Akira's eyebrows perks up a little. He looks to his wife. The man wants to know our names. Should we? Jittery, without uttering a word, nods. Knowing her answer, he smiles and looks back at Anand once again. Sir, the names of the survivors of the body are Akira and Chidori Misaka.